Hello, hibiscus. I'm not going to ask you how you are because I know mentally, spiritually, physically, probably financially, you are in the depths of hell. But
The ghetto!
I gave you so much warning. April was going to be what? A disrespectful month, and now you're experiencing it. Look, I will never have you looking crazy in these streets. So, grab a cup of jar, put some oil in your hair, take off your bra, get real cozy. Let's have a chit chat about how you can pick yourself up for the rest of April. It will be fine. We all have our moments. It's okay. Sometimes we lose it. Sometimes we do things that are embarrassing. Sometimes we don't even understand why we did what we did. But you can always try again. You can always move on. Don't worry, I have you. Relax, hibiscus, relax. Let the embarrassment fade away. You'll be okay. Let's start with some context setting. So, why are you feeling very heated? Why are you not feeling great? Where are all the paranoid thoughts coming from? So, you've actually entered April off the back of an eclipse season. So, let's quickly unpack that, okay? So, moon and sun are the lights of your soul. When they are covered, when they are agitated, when they are affected by darkness, nothing good can come. And this year's eclipses were particularly potent due to the signs they were in. So let's start with the lunar eclipse, okay? Lunar's your emotions, how you are emotionally processing the world happening around you. The lunar eclipse occurred in Hasta. That is Virgo type 4 to 7. And Hasta at its worst represents the following, right? It represents manipulative speech. On top of that, it represents someone, basically like espionage, spy, doing stuff in the dark and very, very awful stuff. And then thirdly, it represents a blocked throat chakra. So what does that mean for you? Firstly, like you are not trusting yourself. You're in a heightened paranoid state. Secondly, on top of that, because it's a blocked throat chakra, there's an increased capacity for the person to like not have the words. So all of a sudden you're frustrated, or maybe you're having insights, but you don't feel secure enough, comfortable enough, or adequate enough to communicate your truth. So internally it starts to derail the person. And everyone's living different lives, but that's going to heavily impact all your relationships, right? It's going to heavily impact your businesses and how confident you feel like. And then again, if you are engaging with people, there's a certain strain on it. And because Hasta represents businesses, systems, all the kind of processes, a lot of murky things begin to unravel, as we saw in March, right? Think of the headlines that came up in March regarding business, manipulative speech, and misguiding people, things being done in the dark and being exposed. It sets a very nasty ground, okay? Then you have that 10-day period. So from the second the lunar eclipse kicks off, or eclipse number 1 kicks off, that is nearly 2 weeks of very, very dangerous energy, right? And there is a reason pretty much every spiritual practice you could think of, they do 3 things, right? They intensify their prayers, they will get really strict on their diets to make sure the person's body feels light, well nourished, it's not being bogged down, because obviously food affects your mental health and your spiritual health, right? And then thirdly, time to self. If the energy is mad out here, this is not the most like effective, productive energy to be doing a lot in. It's best just kind of keep to yourself, keep calm, carry on, do as you were doing. And then we have the solar eclipse that happened in the first week of April. It happened in Revati, right? Revati at its worst is like a victim mentality. It's a very, very insecure person. It's someone who can't make decisions. Like Pisces type 6 to 9 Revati, yeah, when they're unbalanced, it's basically like a toddler that keeps crying but won't explain what's wrong, and it doesn't matter what you give them, they cannot be soothed. So imagine that's how you ended March and how you went into April. That's not easy. And I think when you reflect on anything that made you feel not safe, unstable, maybe not even sure in yourself, those thoughts that came up, but one, most of them are nonsense, because it's just the energy of an eclipse. It will mess with somebody like that, right? But I think it's worth noting whatever insecurities or thing came up, where are they coming from? Why do you think these things? Explore that a little bit, right? Because over the next 6 months, there's quite a high chance you'll be tested on those not so great thoughts you are having. And I think you should just take heed. Why they scare you? Can you overcome them? What do you need to stabilize in your outlooks and your habits to not be so petrified? And with that, I'm going to give you the comfort of what Mercury's getting up to in April, okay? So, I labeled this horoscope, your path ahead is protected. Be brave enough to finish this chapter. Ultimately, eclipses are about endings, right? Something is being finalized to be pushed out your life, whether it happens during the eclipse seasons or it plays out over the 6 months, but we're ending this. The one thing that's really wonderful is Mercury is spending a lot of time in Revati. Revati is ruled by a devata called Bhushan. Bhushan's literally the one who protects the journey ahead and helps someone find a path to completion. But, like I said, in Vedic Astrology, we believe in free will. You've got to work with the energy. You can't just be kicking and crying about,
why is everything happening to me?
but then you're not taking control of your actions, your behaviors, your outlooks. And I say this a lot, but I sincerely mean it. And especially with the wait till I do the Saturn video, you are all going to be beside yourselves. But one thing I started saying to people is, look, a hibiscus, a flower cannot blossom in a cemetery. What is meant to die, let it die. It has served its time. And don't mull over, was it good, was it bad? Be above that. Like, it's all an illusion to a certain extent. You need to concentrate on yourself. You need to put energy, focus, and discipline into yourself. Go and check out the Saturn and Mars video. Like, I was being dead serious. You need to get into a mindset. Otherwise, you will get left behind and you will definitely not enjoy the rest of the 2020s. Like, 2024 is a year of discipline. It's ruled by Saturn. Saturn doesn't want to hear excuses. Saturn doesn't want to hear your sob stories. Saturn doesn't care for self-made victims. It wants justice. It wants a purpose in the work you're doing, and it wants you to be healthy and safe and well informed. So move forward like that. Okay? Now let's go to slide 2. The reason April is a little bit techie for people is because of the actual movements of Mercury. So let's unpack that. So, if we look at Mercury's actions and directions, it makes April a little bit easier in terms of how do I navigate this and how do I stay calm, right? How do I make sure I'm not embarrassing myself in these streets? So firstly, you got to remember, this particular eclipse that's just gone is talking about bringing people to a crossroads, right? Because Revati is what? Protection for the journey ahead, but you have to pick the journey you would like to go on. I'm not judging you all, but obviously something just popped into your mind about decisions you have to make. Try not to make them to the end of April, though, just because, well, we'll get into it now, just because of what Mercury's up to. So, firstly, Mercury is spending the first 2 weeks of April in Ganta. If any of you are new around here, look, Ganta refers to 2 things. One, no man's land. So what does that mean? These are fated events. These literally are things that you are going to have to go through. No one can crystal you away from negative experiences. No one can do a mantra to make you skip this experience. Your soul has to go through it, which leads me to point number 2. Ganta talks about undoing a cosmic knot in the soul. So these are very intentional experiences, situations, internal thoughts you will have to make the soul address potentially mindsets, behavior patterns, anything that is hindering it from progressing and elevating. You got to remember, the whole point of Vedic astrology is to develop the soul, is to get it moving along, evolving, kind of growing and blossoming into the thing it's meant to be. It's not meant to stay in a stagnant state. Now, obviously, that is not easy for everybody, right? Especially, I think the thing is, if you consider the eclipse energy, right, that's naturally going to make you insecure, potentially overly passionate about the wrong things, and then you're confronted with like 2 weeks of addressing things and having your faith tested. Yeah, it takes, I imagine, an exceptionally mentally grounded, strong person of faith to kind of handle that. I think it's very, very easy to get derailed in early April if you're not about it or sure of yourself. And then on top of that, Mercury is retrograde pretty much all of this month. So where I think that is helpful is in the following things. Firstly, I know you all think retrogrades are like inherently evil or mean or disruptive. They're not. Many people are born with retrograde planets in their birth charts. That doesn't mean they're going to have like bad luck or things are going to be delayed in their life. Like, again, a lot of astrology is not so binary. There is a spectrum. Nothing is wholly good or wholly bad. And when you start to look at it like that, you start to see it as workable energy, and it carries you a lot further for the things that you can achieve with astrology, right? But the reason I think this is good is, look, let's just break it down. So one, we know you're going to be delivered to a crossroad. That was the whole point of the eclipse. Great. Number two, you are then intrinsically put into a state where you are introspecting and reflecting on what are the things that have held you back in terms of mercurial habits. So Mercury talks about our ability to express ourselves. It talks about kind of our ability to solve problems, how we are processing things, rationale. It represents like a lot of spicy things that I can't say on YouTube, but... And then you get to a point where it's like, okay, if I know I have to pick a new path ahead and really commit to it, because Saturn and Mars, if you haven't, go and watch that video. Discipline, discipline, discipline. Commit, commit, commit. Great. I'm going to have to pick a journey ahead. That's on me. And then before I go on this journey ahead, I'm going to have to get certain things in myself in check or be self-aware of so they don't hold me back or mess up my path ahead and all of that. Then great. If I have all this knowledge and insight now, are there ventures and ambitions that I gave up long ago that could actually be achievable now? So you see how not all retrogrades are bad? Sometimes we have to revisit old challenges, and it's not because they couldn't be achieved or anything like that. Sometimes it was just the wrong time, or sometimes you were immature and you weren't ready. There can be a plethora of things, right? But it doesn't always have to be like the past is the past, right?
I'm not speaking to anybody with a toxic situationship, failed talking stages, or the mark bitch like Nox Bear. Oh, God. If you're stressed about spirituality, please click off. I cannot help you. That's your karma. You keep following those freaks.
Anyway, slide 3. So what themes will Mercury be focusing on this month? So one thing I like to emphasize to people is, look, all the grahas, so the planets in Vedic astrology, they represent like 200 odd things. So the job of an astrologer is like, what do we think is going to be really, really relevant? Obviously, when you have to do that at a collective level, we are tested on our excellence. But I thought these would be very dominant themes in April that Mercury makes you concentrate on, right? So one is beauty. Again, if you're going ahead on a new path, I think it's very normal, and especially for marginalized people, we get self-conscious. We think about like how we're showing up in the world. Do we feel good about how we're showing up in the world? Is there anything we need to heal, fix in ourselves so we feel more confident to really go for the things we want, right? Secondly, the brilliance of expression. Again, if you are delivered to a crossroad and you're about to potentially be liberated and things are about to end, there's a certain element of freedom and beauty that allows you to express yourself in a much more vivacious way. You can't run a marathon with weights around your ankle, you know? Number 3, commerce. Mercury is for the business, babe. So I also think there is a really wonderful energy in the air, especially with Rahu and Venus being conjunct. That will be the next video, of like, actually, the things I am aspiring to achieve can happen. But again, think about Mercury's actions. You're going to have to follow kind of that plan of logic and it deliver to you to get like the best result or make the best investments for like commerce, trading, your business ambitions. Development of mindset. Again, not the easiest energy. April is an incredibly disrespectful month, and I think if you're someone who's been disrespected frequently or kind of bamboozled by the same things, I think you're being shown in very extreme ways. You gotta evolve this stuff. Or God forbid you become a guest on my show confronting the colonizer on TikTok. You definitely need to develop your mindset. I got your number, baby. Next, discrimination. The Alicia's lay of the land. Look, Saturn's just gone into Bhuvapadra, which talks about a man with two faces, and it talks about exposing hypocrisies and like a lot of injustices. So again, this is a heightened time where we are aware of discrimination, but we handle it differently. That's a really beautiful thing. Revati talks about a path to completion. This talks about handling everything, you know? Next, we have being free from pride. Again, I think when things are closing out, sometimes it's really easy to be egotistical about things, to want to fight things. Sometimes we can feel like we're getting rejected. But the way I look at it is when you are freed of certain people and certain expectations, you can enter a state that's actually much more productive and you can do much more. So don't blow off the endings and people exiting. Again, just focus on the freedoms that you're being given. How can you tackle challenges differently? How can you love differently now that's given to you? Then we have learning. I think the whole internet needs to learn a lot. And the last two things we have is public speaking and then power of judgment. Usually when we look at someone's Mercury, we get a very good idea of how good they are at guiding themselves and how good their discernment of people and basically danger will be. In April, for better or worse, you will really be shown like how good is your outlook, how good are your beliefs and values, and can they carry you far. For some of you, amazing, delicious. For others of you, obviously you are the descendants of colonizers, so we expect something less. Now let's explore Revati. Okay, so the notes I had Revati is, look, the biggest thing about Revati is it talks about completing a journey. Revati actually represents the rites of a funeral. So it talks about what do you need to do that the soul can be at peace so it can gracefully let go and go into the next chapter. But there's also like a very serious side to that where it's like you're judging the quality of the life that has been led. What does it deserve coming up? So again, if you think about that eclipse energy of being at a crossroads and then God heightening a sense of self-awareness in you and all of that, and then being asked to kind of follow your intuition after a lot of disrespect, that's a lot of pressure on a person. But I think one of the really merciful and good things about Mercury being in Revati, it's going to give you a sense of peace. And the reason I say withhold making any final decisions until we clear out April is just because Mercury's retrograde, which means it doesn't mean anything negative, but you're going to be hit with a lot of insights or things that you've overlooked from the past. And I think for anything, before you get into a clean chapter or you're given essentially what is the next game plan, everything has to be left with peace. And you have to feel inspired by your options and not just like you're being forced into something. That mindset can make and break your upcoming years. Okay, so don't rush yourself. Give your time to explore. Make sure you're at peace with everything and have a sense of accountability. If you don't like where you've ended up and you don't think it's fair what potentially your options are moving forward, then really reflect on your behaviors. Think about your behaviors. Think about the way you've been showing up, what you've been engaging with. And for the other of you, and I hope this is for the majority of you, where you feel inspired, great, amazing. But don't conform, because Revati is the story of an oddball. So when you go onto your new path, it's very easy to feel disheartened. It's very easy to be hypercritical and think we have to be something and do something to achieve what we want. No. Rahu's in Revati too. Literally, it talks about favouring the unconventional person and an unconventional path because they're inspired by God. So listen to those intuitions, whatever you like. Be in that state of flow. It will be okay. Okay? And then I thought another cute thing to tell you all is, look, each nakshatra in Vedic astrology has a specific animal that's assigned to it. Revati's is a female elephant. So think about the nature of a female elephant, right? It protects all wildlife, not just its own. It's confident, it's great at problem solving, and it's playful. try to lean into those traits, make them very relevant to you. I think these are fabulous traits for anyone to embody on a new path, right? And especially if you think about this idea of being at a crossroads, wrapping things up, those habits will carry you far, even in the most dire of circumstances. And I think, again, we're coming into a time where, if you follow me on TikTok, obviously I've said, like, listen, we're entering transits now that is indicating it is the downfall of colonialism. Even if you didn't believe in astrology, it's very clear to see. And I think with that, there should be a sense of community that we foster that we have lost due to colonization. Revati's greatest thing is it will protect all forms of life, right? So just because you are not directly suffering doesn't mean you should turn a blind eye to other people. And we are now so lucky to live in a world where we can in real time learn about different forms of oppression and what people are going through. There's no reason for us to sit in ignorance, right? Kind of let that be the way you navigate stuff forward, because that will really build up your karmas in the chapters ahead. And I promise you, I don't think history is going to be kind to people who play dumb or upheld beliefs that are literally built to exploit people like them. So just note that down as we go through April. And then finally, if it hasn't become apparent, Mercury being in Revati is talking about giving you all this energy, inspiration to kind of get back up and feel good about the challenge ahead. So Revati deals with endings. That's not comfortable, but it also has a lot of creativity. Also talks about becoming the wealthiest. So if your poverty is ending, if your low self-confidence is ending, a chapter where you didn't feel happy in yourself is ending, none of that is inherently negative, but you have to be brave enough to close it off and go forward. Even if you can't see the path so clearly, be strong enough to close stuff up so at least a path can start opening up for you. Think about Moses and the Red Sea. Like, literally, God was like, this ain't gonna make sense to you, but if you just stomp your little staff, my man, and I will part this MF for you and I'll get you to the promised land. Don't you think he was like, you crazy? I'm not, and then what did God do? He opened it up. So even when he couldn't see it and he probably thought, oh my God, I am literally in spiritual psychosis. Actually, no.
Let me use that example. I literally was like, if you wait anything, but you get my point. Anyway, next spot, moving on swiftly, ladies and gentlemen.
And just like that, I have low battery. That's probably a sign from God to wrap it up. So the next slide I want to look at is actually, let's look at celebrities who have Mercury and Revati, so you really understand how good April is, even amidst all the craziness, the sadness, and the uncertainties. So I literally thought that was Dev Patel for a second. I was like, to put Dev Patel here, it's Al Pacino. Go and watch Monkey Man if you haven't. We love representation. Get it? Anyway, so the examples of Mercury and Revati I got were Al Pacino, Diana Ross, Dwayne The Rock Johnson. I literally grew up watching WWE. Also, I regret putting him here. Do you know one thing that happens to me a lot, and I think it's something to do with Gator being in Hasta? I've noticed this year, whenever I use a celebrity example, literally within the following week or two, they will end up in the news for having horrible beliefs, and I'm literally just like, oh, it's really emphasizing we should not idolize people because they will let you down or embarrass you. But so, you know, I was talking about Revati deals with endings and it talks about the unconventional path. Mercury and Revati confirms that. So Al Pacino, Diana Ross, and The Rock, essentially, they were on their original career paths and it was kind of working out, slowly unfolding. And it's always something freaky happens. Something like randomly ends it. Like, there's something that stops them going ahead in that path. And simultaneously, in their personal lives, a lot of nonsense and unfolding. So they enter being in the Revati state of like pure sadness, right? Revati's funeral rites. So it's very common that these people, before change occurs and then goodness comes in, they literally feel like they're at death's door. But that's a trick. That's to develop the soul to have more confidence, courage, not care what people think. And it's just like, as these things that they deeply cared about end, these unconventional paths pop up. So Al Pacino originally wants to be a baseball player. And then one thing led to another. And then imagine someone's like, you should do an acting class. And now how do we know Al Pacino? Like, isn't that insane? And then I think in his personal life, his mother was going through a particular illness. His best friend had just died. Life was not kind to him. But it's like in the midst of that emotional turmoil, like you can literally see God just step by step taking him somewhere better than he could even envision for himself. Remember that for April. Same with Miss Diana Ross. So Diana's story is interesting because obviously, well, once she got into the Supremes, but the Supremes had a different name. And then what happens is, like, she does the girl band stuff. It's obviously going well. Motown classics, bangers. But she becomes exhausted, depressed. A lot is happening. And then, you know, band members are leaving. And it forces her to go solo, right? And now look how we know Diana Ross. And actually, throughout Diana's career, I think there's a sense of, like, playing around with different things and being thought of as not the right person, but then delivering a performance, a diva. And then we have The Rock. Such a nice man, such horrible beliefs. I meant nice looking man. His beliefs are like insane. Literally Google him for scandals at the moment. Always something with these people. But even with The Rock, I think his story is actually very, very impressive. And I think it's a testament to God, all jokes aside. Is he originally was, I think, training or pretty much like a college football player. He's playing in a college league. Things are going well, all of that. He's really happy. It's like his dream. And then he has a freak accident, right? And then he can't perform. Things are going wrong. He's down on his luck. So then he has to go back home. He's unemployed, not much money to his name. And then lo and behold, obviously his dad is a famous ass wrestler. And it's like he just falls into the WWE. And it's not what he envisioned for himself. But thank God, because he did WWE. And then I don't think he envisioned himself as an icon doing WWE. I think it's one of those things that, like, I'm going to have to adapt because life has given me these cards. Like, I can't be at home and suffering. But, like, that then opened up the portal for him as, like, an actor. And, like, think about how we know The Rock now. And that's why I wanted to emphasize. It's always in, like, our darkest moments, things ending that we didn't anticipate, us having to let go of things that we have really willed for ourselves. But look at the goodness comes. All three of these have Mercury and Revati. Now that is collective energy that's in the air. Use it well and don't be scared. You know, push forward. Better things are coming. You just have to be courageous. You have to trust yourself. And most importantly, we've really, really got to ground your outlooks. April is a disrespectful month because now you're put in a position where there's this influx of energy coming back to you after basically being drained out of you. But don't fall prey to using that energy to start, like, attacking stuff. Reserve that energy for yourself. Use it to push you into a path that you're happy with. You don't need that energy to attack other people. Use it to grow, develop, and better yourself. And then one of my favourite quotes, because I've gone back to studying, I don't know if we ever discussed this. So at university, I majored in religions and philosophy and theology. And I've gone back to studying by myself. I can't afford a master's degree in this economy. Also, higher academia is hella racist, but that's a conversation for another time. But I've gone back to, like, studying different religious texts and stuff, and it's been so interesting. But one of my, like, favorite quotes is literally like, God will prepare a table in front of your enemies. And I'm just like, delicious. Delicious. It's that kind of energy. Other than that, hibiscuses, watch your mouth, stay calm, keep your hair oiled, and your prayer strong, and you'll be fine. I'll speak to you in the next horoscope. Bye!